Okay, we have another new filament to try. It's actually from this FilaCube, which we've used a lot before, but it's a new color. Mint Blue, so a special product I have coming up. So we pretty well characterized FilaCube, so we probably don't really need to run temperature tower and so forth, but I thought it'd be worth doing because temperatures are changing. It's getting a little bit warmer, so it's better to check it out and make sure that nothing's changed. So it's got a nice vacuum on it as usual. Open this up. It's the PLA 2 brand. So one reason I like this is it's made in the USA, although the raw materials come from overseas. Probably China, they don't really say. So cut this some more. So it's got the same reel as all the rest of them. And it's got a nice desiccant packet. So temperatures, it says 190 to 230. So in the cold temperatures, we're printing at 230. And bed temperature 40 to 50 degrees or none. So we have a heated bed. So I'm using 40 in the cold. And when it gets hot, I usually go down to 30. It's got a nice mint blue, kind of a unique color. I could only find it from these guys. So let's go ahead and weigh it, and we'll see how much we've got to start out with. So it's a good idea to save an empty reel. That way you can get an accurate measurement of the filament, because you can put it on your scale before you turn it on. It'll make this weight of this empty reel as 0. We'll change it to grams. And then when you put the full reel on, it'll do the net weight. So we got a little bit under on this one. That's kind of disappointing. Although it is plus or minus 5%, I guess, or whatever. So we only got 988 grams. So most of the reels we've gotten from these guys and everyone else has been a little bit over. So in this case, they underwound it a little bit. So, well, it's okay. It's not a lot under, so we'll just go ahead and keep using it. Okay, so we're going to test our FilaCube Mint Blue PLA. So we haven't tried this color before. It's still cold in the garage, high 40s in the morning, warming up to maybe 60 later in the day, possibly. So we're going to go from 220 to 240. We've been printing everything at about 230, so it's probably what's going to turn out, but it never hurts to try this again. So there's a link to this STScI project in the description, and this is a pointy temperature tower. It also allows you to put the filament type down here. So these little points, it helps see how well it's extruding, and also looks for strings here. And then of course these bridges test your cooling and bridging ability at different temperatures. So that's that. And then we're going to go over to Simplify 3D and print it out. And Simplify 3D makes it easy to get a temperature gradient. So for bed temperature, we're going to use 40. That's what we've been using for everything. And then for different layers, we're going to change the temperature. So at the bottom, we're going to start at 240. That'll print this base out. Then 18 is right here when this first bridge starts. And that's also 240. That's the temperature of the first bridge. And then every 35 layers, we switch to a new temperature. So this one we printed 235, 230, 225, 220. You always want to start at the highest temperature at the bottom, because if you have clogging problems, you don't want it to start at the bottom. You want, at least to go as far as it can before it starts clogging the nozzle. So there's usually no problem printing at a higher temperature. It'll come out. It might be a little drippy and so forth, but at least it'll work. And for cooling, because it's cold still, we're using only 20% fan. Last summer when I was printing, I was using 100% fan for PLA, which is pretty standard. All right, so that's ready to go, and then we'll do that and see what temperature we end up with, and then we'll go on to the next test. Okay, so we got our startup procedure pretty well dialed in these days. So temperature in the garage is 52 and a half degrees Fahrenheit. And we've got our 1 kilogram reel loaded on our side loader. The new beefed up arms. And we're using spacers. Wheels are different widths, so I'm using these spacers to keep it kind of centered. We poke it through one of the heat break tubes that came with the printer through the sides, so it has a nice smooth transition to the inside, and we run it up through the feed tube inside. I'll make sure this doesn't come unwound out here. Okay, so that's nice and tight. We come down here and we've got our bed and the extruder all preheated. So we cleaned the extruder last night completely by purging all the filament out of it using the little poker thing. And we always take the head apart. We always take the head apart so we can get in there and get all the filament out the night before, because we don't want cold filament sitting in there this morning. So, and then once we've got all the filament out, we use a brass brush to brush off the nozzle to make sure there's no filament left on the nozzle. So we heat it up to our starting temperature. So in this case, since we're printing a temperature tower, we're going to 240 as our starting temperature and 40 degrees for the bed. So now that it's all heated up, at this point we're going to do the bed leveling. So before every print we do bed leveling. I at least unload the filament even if I don't purge it all out, so that the nozzle is clean and not dripping. And then I do a bed leveling using my index card, so that before every print the bed is level. That's obviously a key thing to do when you're 3D printing. Otherwise you're going to have a lot of failed prints. So get this set up and we'll run the temperature tower and we'll see how it turns out. Alright, let's see how it turns out. Straying from the final pointy thingy. Good bed adhesion. Nice and clean on the bottom. So we had some drooping, because I've only got it on 20% fan. That could be part of the problem. But let's look at the pointy things. Pointy things are pretty good all around. Numbers, 220 looks better. Actually 225 maybe. Look at these pointy things. Well, I mean, we could run anywhere from 220 to 230 with this setup. I think if I had a little more fan, I probably wouldn't get this drooping at 230. So since we're running everything else at 230, I'm going to go ahead and print our bedded layer and adhesion test at 230. What we're going to be doing for the final print isn't really going to have any bridging, so I'm not too worried about that. But could go lower, but to keep things simpler, I'm going to go ahead and stick to what I'm putting everything else. As it gets warmer, I'll be lowering that temperature though, definitely, and increasing the fan speed. All right, so our next test is our bed adhesion and layer cracking test. So by printing a square rectangle, we can test to see how well we're adhering to the bed. So if the corners are curling up, then our bed temperature isn't high enough. That's usually what the problem is. Also test printing out raised letters and engraved letters, embossed and engraved. So this project is available for free on Thingiverse. I loaded it on there. And you can customize with your own text and font if you want. So check out that in the description. And what this really multi-test is, usually the layer bed adhesion is fine, but the layer adhesion is where we run into problems. So if this joint here is not strong, in other words, if you can't flex these two sides and have this not crack, then you're not having good layer adhesion. So that test has been super effective for me, so I recommend it. So go over to Simplify 3D again. In this case, we're just printing a single temperature. So on our temperature tower test, we ended up with 40 degrees for the bed, and 230, which is what we're printing in cold weather. It's pretty standard for us. And cooling, again, is 20% on the second layer. You need to use some cooling with PLA, otherwise it'll remelt the first layer. So that's why you want to use at least some cooling. I haven't been able to, I never print with no cooling with PLA. PETG, sometimes I have no cooling, but PLA is a lower melt point temperature. So, all right, so that's that. That's pretty straightforward. We'll do that, and then we'll do our fun print. Okay, it turned out, at least it looks good. Let's see how it actually turned out here. One string coming from the bottom, the last place it printed. Layer adhesion looks good. Let's try taking off the bed here. Bed adhesion is perfect. It comes off smoothly without any extra effort. So the bottom looks super clean. The lettering looks super clean. Some layer lines, but that's not much. The back, top of the back is super shiny. So that means it's really good laying down of the flat areas. And then the raised letters are all sharp. And the indented letters all look good too. And then the strength, that's the key. I'm pressing really hard on this, and it's not cracking. So we're going to stick with the 230. We probably could print a little bit cooler, but 230 and 20% fan worked, and it's strong, so that's what we care about. And like I say, we're going to be printing mostly flat surfaces, so this shiny surface here looks perfect for what we're going to print it ultimately. So now it's on to the fun print. So we have our bed and layer adhesion dialed in with the settings that we used. So this is a project we've done a lot for our fun print Benchy, but I'm not going to do that this time. Instead, I'm going to print a wave that you can put Benchy in. See, this bottom is the same size as Benchy. So somebody posted this on Thingiverse. I'll put a link in the description. So this is actually going to take a little bit longer than I usually like to do for a test print. I use a little more filament, but I think it'd be fun to have a little wave that we can put our Benchies on and have a little display going. Since I'm using mint blue, it seems like a good choice because it sort of looks like the ocean. So for the infill, I'm only using 20% infill because we don't really need a lot of infill with this. And I'm going to use fast honeycomb because that prints a little bit faster. And I think for this round project, that'll work better. Temperature, we're doing 40 and 230, and cooling, same as we did for the other project. So let's do prepare to print. We can see how long it's going to take. Yeah, see, so it takes 2 hours and 48 minutes. That's usually longer than I want to print for a test, but since this is a fun thing. There you can see the fast honeycomb. See the fast honeycomb printing because it keeps going in from the outside, and the fast honeycomb I think gives a better support for what it's trying to do here. So we'll see. Hopefully that'll work out. And we're printing at only 20% infill because it's just a test print and it'll go faster and really we'll end up wasting less filament. So, all right, so see how that turns out, and then we'll show it with one of the Benchies I printed and as a little finale. Pretty good. It's got some bridging issues here and a couple other places. So probably should have printed a little bit cooler, maybe higher fan. So let's see how it comes off here though. big giant circle here, so it's a little hard to get off, but it's coming off okay. Similar to other big things that I've printed. There. As you can see right in here, there's some gapping down here. So over here, this is somewhat challenging to print. I only had 20% infill, so maybe 50% would have printed better, plus I could have cooled it a little bit, probably a little bit more. But let's try, see how Benchy fits. Not bad. Alright, we're going to go ahead and print our real thing with this mint blue filament, and we'll see how it turns out. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Post a comment if you have any questions or ideas, and I'll try to respond. That's all for now, but more videos are coming, and if you want to see them, please subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification icon if you don't want to miss one. This is STScI signing out, and keep looking up.